Okay, well, welcome to another brand new episode of Cruise Corner, the podcast brought to you by Cruise Trade News. I am Jack, your co-host, and I'm delighted to say that I am joined by Michelle Daniels, country manager for VIVA Cruises. Welcome.
Hi, Jack. Thank you for having me.
The pleasure is all ours, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, it's been 3 months now since you took on the role at VIVA. Tell me, how's it gone? What surprised you? What's exciting you right now about the role?
Yeah, so it's been a busy three months. A lot has happened. It kind of feels like a lot's happened and then not so much has happened, which is a really bizarre take on it. But it's been incredibly busy. I'm a very impatient person. I like things to happen now and get things in place. So I've had to learn to be a bit more patient in that respect. Certainly from Viva's perspective, we are a brand that over the last couple of years, people have been aware of in the market, but have never really kind of understood who Viva was. And so in answer to your question about what surprised me, I think what has surprised me is that although it's kind of been a brand that people have been aware of, they've had the opportunity to go to the CLIA RiverView Conference and they've seen the ships, they've stayed on board. And what I loved was the feedback I got instantaneously as soon as my announcement was made about how much so many agents loved the product, loved the service, loved the food. They were saying, wow, it is amazing. So that's been a real lovely surprise to work with, I think, because, it's nice to be able to work for a product that people see as being, aspirational and interesting. So my job really now is about putting in the basics, getting the agreements in place with all of the trade partners, which is kind of all the boring stuff really, and then getting into the good stuff, which is actually working with the partners to market it and promote it, get the training, get people on fam trips. So those are kind of all the next steps now that I'm working on. So the last 3 months has been kind of agency contracts, etc., and now it's moving on to the next stage.
I guess Viva is seen as quite an emergent brand in the UK sector. So is it exciting or is it daunting going into a river cruise line where there's perhaps more awareness and more education needed? Does that kind of give you more room for growth? Does that give you a bit more of an uphill task?
I absolutely love the challenge of that. I am so excited about Viva because I really do think, I genuinely believe that Viva is sort of redefining the traditional river cruise experience. People tend to kind of look at river cruising as being quite a tradition in the traditional sense. And I think Viva breaks that mould, particularly when it comes to onboard dining and the freedom and flexibility that guests have when they're on board. You're not having to sort of dine in one restaurant or only have one lounge, bar lounge to sit in. You've got a range of different restaurants that you can dine in. So it's like having your own premium boutique hotel where you can dine in whichever restaurant you want to, and you can change it up. So you've always got a different dining experience every day, essentially. In different parts of the ship that you can sit and enjoy, the sun deck and the bars and the lounges on board. So I really think that, we're bringing something a little bit different to traditional river cruising.
Sure. Well, one of the things you mentioned when you took on the role is that you're looking to grow your market share within the UK up to 10%. I mean, that's quite a hefty target to hit. I mean, are you on your way to doing that? What strategies are you putting in place? And I guess what's really want to know is how is the trade going to help support you achieve that?
The trade will be 100% our success in achieving that. We don't have an atoll license, so therefore we can't offer flight packaged holidays. So we are very reliant on working with the trade to build to build those numbers. So yes, so the trade are going to be 100%, our success to achieving that 10% goal that we're aiming for, and that's a goal that we're aiming for by the end of 2026. So we have got a bit of time. I'm not expecting everything to happen all at once. Things have to build. We've got a lot of awareness in building awareness with the trade. We've got a lot of work to do there, and also training as well for the trade to understand why we are different and how we are different to other river cruise brands.
Sure.
And I think that's really important because there are a lot of river cruise brands out there, And when you have conversations with agents, I think they're still very nervous about understanding the different brands, because essentially we all offer the same destinations. We can't make up a new river. The rivers are the rivers in Europe particularly. So we can't make up new destinations. So it's about how we deliver that river cruise experience for our guests. And that's, where we're going to differ in terms of our product offering.
Well, you've obviously worked in the sector for a while. I mean, you were at A-Rosa River Cruises before you took on this role. How have you noticed sort of river guests in particular, their priorities shift? I mean, you mentioned already that Viva offers sort of more flexibility around itineraries. There are more restaurants and bar areas on board. Is that in line with what passengers are looking for from cruising in general? And is that like a need that river cruise, are you as a more nimble player in the river cruise sector is able to meet, as opposed to maybe some of the other lines in the sector?
I think, look, there's always room for the traditional river cruises, and we are a perfect offering for traditional river cruises. But I think from Viva's perspective, it's about pushing the boundaries and finding those new to river clients and new to cruise clients. And for us particularly, the facilities that we offer, the dining concept, the fact that we operate 11 and a half months of the year, so we're operating in January, February and March when a lot of other river operators don't operate. And in those months we are focusing more on kind of the city break experience. And for us, that's where we're starting to see a bit of a shift in not only the type of customer that's coming on board, but the age as well.
Interesting.
So we're starting to see a slightly younger age group come on board, and I was pleasantly surprised when I was on board Viva Enjoy and Viva One at the very beginning, before I kind of got into things at the beginning of April, and I was really surprised to see a couple of young couples on board, a young couple with a baby. Those are just not things that I've seen previously with other brands that I've worked with. So it was a really lovely, pleasant surprise to see that, and I think particularly with offering these kind of more city break, short break cruises as well, wellness cruises that we offer as well in that time of year, you're able to kind of reach that different audience. And us as an industry and travel agents out there, they're always looking for that opportunity to entice that new customer. So that I see as a perfect opportunity for them to do that.
Well, I think that's really interesting what you just said there, because agents who will be listening or watching to this are always on the lookout for where that new to cruise client is currently sitting and where they can attract them from. So in terms of sort of the kind of guests that you're seeing, especially those younger guests you're seeing aboard a VIVA cruise, what type of holidays might they be booking more traditionally, and what other sectors within cruise and even within travel or more broadly, where can agents target them from?
I think, over the years when I've worked with river cruise brands, we've always talked about, the coach holiday customers and the city break customers. But I think where we are kind of looking at this a little bit differently is that we are looking at it as a premium hotel on the river in a key location in a city where guests can kind of base themselves. What we don't include shore excursions in our package. So we're an all-inclusive package. We include everything, all your drinks, all your meals, all your snacks, gratuities, Wi-Fi, access to the steam and sauna, all of those kind of things. But we purposely don't include shore excursions because we recognise that from a city break perspective, you would go on a city break and you would, essentially enjoy exploring yourself individually. And it's almost like using our kind of shore excursions team, our cruise director and our concierge team, like a concierge in a hotel, where they can offer opportunity to do a shore excursion or give you insights into places to go and things to do, but you're not obliged to take those. And that again gives our guests the freedom and flexibility to either go off and explore on their own, or take up, maybe one or two shore excursions in the entire cruise that they're doing, and use that as a kind of more of a concierge rather than seeing it as the traditional shore excursion program, if you understand what I mean. So it's looking at it differently.
That does kind of break from tradition for most cruise lines, and particularly in river. But do you see that's because does that tie in with how sort of people enjoy city breaks today?
I think so, yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly talking from a personal perspective, you know, when we've taken city breaks, we've never really looked at, you know, pre-booking kind of things to do. We will go to that destination, check out the hotel, go and wander and explore the different, you know, the streets around it, and see what, you know, tourist attractions there are to see and do, and maybe use the hotel concierge as some, you know, for some recommendations for some restaurants and things. But, you know, certainly it's been more about kind of just following your nose and exploring, and I think that those are sometimes the best ways to get to know a destination, is just to check out those back streets, and, you know, and find that local restaurant or cafe, bar that, you know, turns out to be, you know, fantastic place to view or people watch, or, you know, see a destination. So
sure, I think that's a fascinating approach. I mean, one of the other really fascinating things that you guys have on the horizon is the launch of your new luxury class Viva Boutique. Tell me a bit about that. Tell me a bit about how that's going to sort of further separate you guys from the rest of the pack in the sector.
Absolutely. So we're really excited about Viva Boutique. We launch next year in April 2026 with Viva Beyond. She is a ship that we've taken from the Skiller fleet, and we've completely refurbished her and almost rebuilt her, essentially. The kind of thought process behind this was around how a lot of our suites are selling early. So we tend to sell from the top down, essentially, in the Viva program. So we were seeing a kind of bit of a trend in people wanting to book suites and the higher end cabins. So it was more about looking at, okay, how can we you know, maximise on that opportunity. And so the Viva Boutique brand was kind of born from that, essentially. So Viva Beyond has been completely refurbished with over 50% suites and master suites as part of the cabin allocation. And with that, you get lots of extra benefits, you know, with those cabin grades. The other side of it is elevating the experience in terms of destination immersion as well. So we're based on the Seine with Viva Beyond, and the ship itself will kind of have inflections of French flair in its design and in its concept. The food on board will be very much celebrating local regional dishes, seasonal dishes as well. We've got a Michelin star chef who's curating our menus for us. And we're also looking at kind of more immersive, private, exclusive excursions as well that we can offer. So, you know, like, for instance, taking, you know, the kind of little French 2CVs, the old-fashioned little Citroens.
Yeah.
So taking a private tour in one of those, you know, in the streets of Paris, as an example. Lots of opportunity for food and wine tasting. And the concept with the itineraries that we put together is to focus around three distinct pillars. One is art, one is lifestyle and culture, and the other one is culinary. So each of the itineraries and the excursions will be focused around those pillars.
Sure. And so you mentioned there being a high proportion of suites on board. Does that mean there'll be a reduced capacity?
Yes, yeah. So only 112 guests on board, maximum capacity. And
what does having that sort of more, I guess, exclusivity mean for the guest experience?
It means more space. It means more exclusive, you know, a feeling of more exclusivity on board, and we're able to deliver a much higher end service on board. You know, we'll still have the same number of staff crew on board, but obviously looking after a smaller number of people. So that element of service will also be, you know, very elevated.
Fascinating. So when's that going to be on sale?
We're already on sale for Viva Beyond, and then we will have some new news on new destinations later this year.
Okay, exciting. So we can expect to see this product on other rivers in the future?
Absolutely.
Exciting. Okay, well, we'll definitely keep our ears to the ground on that one. One thing I did want to touch upon, something that's been really topical this year in the river sector, something that we at Cruise Trade News have covered extensively, is the introduction of new players to the market. So people watching or listening will know I'm mainly referring there to sort of celebrity cruises, but we've also seen National Geographic Lindblad Expeditions announce plans to launch onto the rivers around the world. Where does that sit with you? Is that something that you as a river cruise line are excited about? Is it an opportunity for you guys to raise your game even further? Is it something that maybe you're even concerned about?
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting that we've got other cruise line brands out there that are seeing river as, you know, a great opportunity for growth. You know, as river cruise industry as a whole, we've developed a lot over the last couple of years. We're talking about it a lot more in the industry, which is great. The trade are seeing, you know, the opportunities for sales there. So I think, you know, we're obviously doing something right for these big brands now to start looking at river as a prospect. And I think it is exciting because there will be a halo effect. And it's like anything, when you've got a large brand that is very prominent in the market and they're starting to focus on an area that's maybe not so kind of marketed in the industry, then it's, you know, it does create that halo effect in terms of people seeing river as a good prospect. So I think bringing new customers to river, absolutely they're going to do that. And I think all river cruise brands will benefit from that. What I do think that we need to be wary of, and this is something that, you know, I know our CEO Andrea shares, is that you know, actually on the rivers and operating on the rivers, there are going to be more ships, and therefore there needs to be maybe more cooperation between the brands to work out, you know, berthing, etc. Particularly in big cities like Vienna and Budapest, etc. You know, where you may have already, you know, 3 ships docked in a pack already. So we need to be mindful of that, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess what's really exciting about this is that, you know, you've probably seen firsthand the journey that River Cruise has gone on over the last 5-10 years till now. Does it surprise you the amount of sort of the amount of spotlight that River Cruise is getting currently?
No, I would say no, because I think, you know, having worked with River for a while now, you know, I've believed in the prospect of River, and I think it's great now to see that we are starting to come into our own as a sector of the industry. You know, for a very long time, obviously, ocean, you know, was the big area. And there was lots of innovation in ocean, which kind of created that wow factor for the trade. You know, and it's very difficult as a river cruise line brand to compete with, you know, bumper cars and flow riders and, you know, all these amazing concepts that you see now on big ocean liners. But I think, you know, there's always been a place for us, and I think maybe we've been a little bit of a sleeping giant, and now we're starting to see, as I said, really excited to see that the trade is kind of seeing those opportunities now to grow their own business. And, you know, we're seeing, you know, great partners out there investing lots of money in marketing and building, you know, their sales platforms and their websites to cater for river cruising, which, you know, is not something we were seeing, you know, even a few years ago, 5 years ago.
Sure. And that's a really good answer. One last thing I wanted to touch on before we let you go is you were recently part of the Cruise Career Springboard. Talk to me a bit about how you got involved with that, and how did it go on the day, and was it nerve-wracking talking to students about your career?
Yeah, it was lovely. Obviously, Matthew and Edwina run the Career Springboard, and Edwina invited me to join them to talk about my career and kind of how I started in the industry. It's a bit weird standing up in front of a group of people and talking about yourself, per se, but no, it was nice, and I think I wanted to try and give lots of advice and kind of showcase things that I'd learned along the way, and kind of, you know, pass that knowledge and that that kind of knowledge onto them. So you know, it was a great day. The students asked lots of questions, which was brilliant. We did a bit of a quiz as well to kind of get their river cruise knowledge to see how they fared there, which was great. Yeah, no, they did really well. They did really well. And it was lovely to go back and see them a couple of weeks ago at their graduation as well, and get them to see them, you know, receiving their certificates, which was lovely.
Right. Well, what a rewarding thing to be a part of.
Can
you share some of those insights now on the podcast that you shared with them that day? Yeah,
I mean, they're not, you know, they're not kind of all inspiring things. They're pretty basic things, really, but. You know, a lot of the things that I learned throughout my career was, you know, taking hold of every opportunity that comes your way. Literally, I kind of started my career in cruise purely from, I was at college and I had been given an opportunity, or we'd had this opportunity from our lecturer to take a work experience placement. And nobody else in my class was interested. And I was really keen. I was like, well, this is a great opportunity. And so I jumped at it. It turned out that it was a position to go once a week up to the Passenger Shipping Association in London, and PASARA, the Passenger Shipping Association Retail Agent Scheme, which was the very early days of CLIA, essentially.
Right, okay.
And that was my opportunity. So I went 1 day a week. I was released out of college for 1 day a week. It was, exciting because I was getting to go up to London for the day and work and, kind of get into that whole London vibe thing. And that's really where, I kind of grew this love for cruise, which had never been even mentioned in my travel and tourism course, bizarrely. I talked to the students the other week when we were chatting, and I was chatting to the lecturer, and I said it's bizarre how back then when I was doing my GMVQ travel and tourism course, it was either you were a travel agent, you worked for an airline, or you were a rep. And those were kind of the three things that we talked about. Cruise was never even touched on. So this was opening my eyes up to a whole new part of the industry, and instantly fell in love with it. As a result, it was a very simple. One of the ladies was, as I was coming to the end of my college course, one of the ladies, the administrators, was leaving, and an opportunity for a full-time job came up, so I grabbed it.
Fantastic.
And that's how it started, which is bizarre.
Well, that's a great example of, as you said, seizing opportunities come your way, because you never know what they might lead to.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is, don't be afraid to ask for things. Don't be afraid to offer suggestions. There's been a couple of times in throughout my career where I've seen an opportunity, for an opportunity for a job role, and I've approached them and said, how about this? And that progressed into something different. That's how I ended up working for the Telegraph and launching the Telegraph Cruise Show. Was purely from a chance conversation, with the owners there, and I was able to kind of develop that cruise show, which was fun at the time.
Fantastic. Well, Michelle, I could talk to you about River and your career all day, but sadly we're going to have to end it there. For those of you listening and watching, keep your eyes peeled for Cruise Trade News' September issue. We have a special River Cruise supplement featuring inside that edition, where you're going to find out loads more about Viva. But in the meantime, Michelle, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jack. It's lovely.